Every Who down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot.
But the Grinch, who lived just north of Whoville, did not. The Grinch hated Christmas, the whole Christmas season. Now, please don't ask me why. No one quite knows the reason. It could be his head wasn't screwed on just right. It could be perhaps his shoes were too tight. But I think that the most likely reason of all may have been that his heart was 2 sizes too small. But whatever the reason, his heart or his shoes, he stood there on Christmas Eve, hating the Whos.
Staring down from his cave with a sour, grinchy frown at the warm-lighted windows below in their town. For he knew every Who down in Whoville beneath was busy now hanging a mistletoe wreath. And they're hanging their stockings!
He snarled with a sneer.
Tomorrow is Christmas, it's practically here!
Then he growled with his Grinchy fingers nervously drumming.
I must find some way to stop Christmas from coming!
For tomorrow he knew all the Who girls and boys would wake bright and early. They'd rush for their toys, and then, oh the noise, noise.
That's one thing he hated.
The noise!
The noise!
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 Here, doggy. Sit. Then the Whos, young and old, would sit down to a feast.
And they'd feast.
And they'd feast.
Feast. They would feast on Who pudding and rare Who roast beast.
Which was something the Grinch couldn't stand in the least.
And then they do something he liked least of all.
Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, would stand close together with Christmas bells ringing. They'd stand hand in hand and the Whos would start singing.
And they'd sing.
And they sing.
Sing.
And the more the Grinch thought of this Who Christmas singing,
The more the Grinch thought, I must stop this whole thing. Why, for 53 years I've put up with it now. I must stop this Christmas from coming. But how?
then he got an idea, an awful idea.
The Grinch got a wonderful, awful idea.
I know just what to do.
The Grinch laughed in his throat.
Oh,
He made a quick Santa Claus hat and a coat, and he chuckled and clucked.
what a great Grinchy trick. With this coat and this hat, I look just like St. Nick. All I need is a reindeer.
Then the Grinch looked around, but since reindeer are scarce, there was none to be found.
Did that stop the old Grinch?
No!
The Grinch simply said.
If I can't find a reindeer, I'll make one instead.
So he called his doggy Max!
Then he took some red thread and tied a big horn on the top of his head. Then he laded some bags and some old empty sacks
On a ramshackle sleigh, and he hitched up old Max.
Then the Grinch said, "Giddy up!"
And the sleigh started down towards the house where the Whos lay a snooze in their town.
All their windows were dark. Quiet snow filled the air. All the Whos were all dreaming sweet dreams without care.
When he came to the first little house on the square, "This is stop number 1.
The old Grinchy Claus hissed.
Then he climbed to the roof, empty bags in his fist.
Then he slid down the chimney at a rather tight pinch, but if Santa could do it,
Then so could the Grinch. He got stuck only once for a moment or two. Then he stuck his head out of the fireplace flue, where the little Who stockings all hung in a row.
These stockings
he grinned.
are the first thing to go."
Then he slithered and slunk with with a smile most unpleasant,
around the whole room, and he took every present. Pop guns,
and bicycles, roller skates,
drums,
checkerboards, tricycles, popcorn.
and plums, and he stuffed them in bags.
Then the Grinch very nimbly stuffed all the bags one by one up the chimbley.
Then he slunk to the ice box.
He took the Who's feast. He took the Who pudding.
He took the roast beast!
He cleaned out that ice box as quick as a flash.
Why, that Grinch even took their last can of Who hash.
Then he stuffed all the food up the chimney with glee,
And now,
grinned the Grinch.
I will stuff up the tree.
And the Grinch grabbed the tree and started to shove when he heard a small sound like a coo of a dove.
He turned around fast and he saw a small Who, little Cindy Lou Who.
He was not more than 2. The Grinch had been caught by this tiny Who daughter who'd got up out of bed for a cup of cold water. She stared at the Grinch and said, Santa Claus, why? Why are you taking our Christmas tree? Why?
But you know, that old Grinch was so smart and so slick, he thought up a lie.
And he thought it up quick. Why, my sweet little tot,
The fake Santa Claus lied.
there's a light on this tree that won't light on one side. So I'm taking it home to my workshop, my dear. I'll fix it up there, then I'll bring it back here. And his fist fooled the child. Then he patted her head, and he got her a drink, and he sent her to bed.
And when Cindy Lou Who went to bed with her cup, he went to the chimney and stuffed up the tree.
Then the last thing he took was their log for their fire. Then he went up the chimney himself, the old liar. All the walls was left with nothing but hooks and some wires. And the one speck of food that was left in the house was a crumb that was even too small for a mouse.
Then he did the same thing to the other Who houses.
Leaving crumbs too small for the other Who's mouses. It was 1/4 dawn, all the Who's still abed.
All the Who's still a snooze when he packed up his sled. Packed it up with their presents, the ribbons,
The wrappings, the tags, and the tinsel, the trimmings,
the trappings, 3,000 feet up.
Up the side of Mount Crumpet.
He rode with his ladder to the tip top to dump it.
poo-poo to the Who's.
He was grinchiously humming.
They're finding out now that no Christmas is coming. They're just waking up. I know just what they'll do. Their mouths will hang opened a minute or two. Then the Who's down in Whoville will all cry, boo-hoo! That's a noise
Grinned the Grinch.
that I simply must hear. So he paused, and the Grinch put his hands to his ear. And he did hear a sound rising over the snow.
It started in low, then it started to grow. But this sound wasn't sad. Why, this sound sounded merry.
It couldn't be so, but it was merry.
Very! He stared down at Whoville.
The Grinch popped his eye, then he shook. What he saw was a shocking surprise. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, was singing.
Without any presents at all. He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came.
Somehow or other, it came just the same.
And the Grinch with his Grinch feet, ice cold in the snow,
Stood puzzling and puzzling.
How could it be so? It came without ribbons. It came without tags. It came without packages, boxes, or bags.
and he puzzled 3 hours till his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before.
Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from the store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more.
What happened then? Did he what happened then? Well, in Whoville, they say that the Grinch is small. Grew 3 sizes that day.
his heart didn't feel quite so tight. He whistled with a loud
Kitty's a dog. Kitty's a dog.
through the bright morning light. Kitty and dog.
And he brought back the toys and the food for the feast.
And he
He himself, the
The
Grinch,
Grinch
carved
carved
the
the
roast beast.
The end.
Good bow. We gotta do our bows. We gotta come back here. Oh my goodness.
We got a pie and a cat. Whenever he started laughing, I thought he was gonna run out naked. I was ready for like.
I thought it was too. When I was looking, I was like, oh, here it comes.
Oh my
He just
gosh!
ran by and he's like, I gotta poop. And it just went. I was like, oh.
Here.
Did you have to poop?